We got our man back with us. Well, good morning, everybody. I'll call the meeting of regulated industries to order. Got a short agenda today. We don't know how it's going to play out, but we're gonna take it up. First on the list, we're going to recognize Representative Al Williams to talk about a rolling barbershop.
Members of the committee, thank you very kindly for hearing my bill this morning. I bring to you House Bill 70, LC 381172. Now, this is arguably the easiest bill that will come before your committee this session. That being said, just a few lines, and all it does is it licenses mobile barber shops to be able to operate in Georgia, which they currently can't do. And it's very explicit as to how it can be done, and it excludes some provisions that now are available in a regular barber shop. One being that there can be no apprentices trained at this location, subject to the very same requirements, certainly the health codes, etc. It is it's just a business whose time has come. I never thought about it. A couple of barbers brought the idea to me and asked why they could not get a license. And one gentleman who didn't know that he needed, that there was no law permitting it, had gone out and bought an RV and equipped it at great expense. Now, doing my research, when I did this bill, vendor services are available in many areas in Georgia currently. You can give blood. You can have everything done to your teeth. You can groom a dog or buy a slab of ribs, but you can't cut your hair. And now I know there's some concern about inspections. You know, those concerns really went away with Pac-Man. In this day and age, there's absolutely no problem inspecting a mobile barber shop. If we can inspect a dental clinic or a mobile food vendor, we certainly can inspect barber shops, trucking companies. You sit in Atlanta, Georgia, and know where their trucks are in upstate New York at any given time. The technology is available. My big concern is not to make this a deterrent to small business. It's a potential tax increaser. You certainly have ordinances, local ordinances, that these would have to come under. I looked at how we control food vendors, and I also think that, you know, in a great capitalistic society such as ours, it always wins. And I know that there'd be some concern for competition, but my goodness, what would have happened if the telephone booth people stopped cell phones? In a tough world we live in. So I certainly hope that you would see fit to give this a due pass recommendation. I'll entertain any questions that the committee might have.
See, we got Representative Harrell. Excuse me, I didn't see who it was. Okay, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Mr. Williams, for bringing the bill. And we've had a discussion on a couple of my issues prior, so these should be no surprise to you. It's my understanding that you agree that this type of service should continue to be inspected, that there are certainly sanitary and health issues that would justify an inspection on a periodic basis.
Most certainly.
And as I had mentioned in full disclosure for the other members of the committee, my wife happens to be a hairdresser. And a few years ago moved her salon into our home. Once or twice a year, someone from the state comes into my house unannounced to inspect the sanitary conditions. I'm interested in if you'll explain to me how an unannounced inspection of a mobile barber will occur.
Okay. Of course, I'm technologically challenged, but I do know this, that if you rent a car from Hertz today and you don't turn it in, they can disable that car from the office. LoJack's let us find wherever a car might be or a vehicle may be. Law enforcement can very easily reach them. A simple GPS system will tell us wherever this vehicle is. Additionally, Skype, we can go into the boardroom. I sit here and meet with my development authority in Hinesville now. There are many things that we can require that be in place that would make it very simple. And my contention is we're able to inspect food vendors now. You inspect them the same way that you would a mobile food vendor. They figured it out.
If you'll entertain a follow-up, would you direct me to the line in the bill that requires that type of GPS and establishes how that information is communicated and how that inspection might take place? I think you may be right on the technology being available. I'm not sure that this legislation as presented provides for that, however.
The legislation only amends the current legislation that governs barbershops.
Yes, sir.
Barbershops now are subject to unannounced inspections, and they will be subject to the very same. As a matter of fact, the application will look very much like, I'm certain, the application for a mobile food vendor. But I have no problem whatsoever if the committee wants to ensure that they're able to do this. My concern is I want us to be business friendly. It's cumbersome enough to do business in Georgia now as a small businessman. Let's not make it so expensive until this is not a good business. This could supply some employment. It's good for taxes. I'm looking for one way to make it happen. I can come up with 50 to not make it happen.
Thank you.
Representative Williams, on that point, apparently the mobile barbershop will be domiciled at some location with an address that if they want to make an unannounced, could go by that address, realizing that, of course, it's going to be moving about, but sometime in that day or night of that vehicle could be identified at a location. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. I'm thinking that probably from a financial standpoint, the easiest way would be to probably have a low jack or something that really you then the person would not even have to check in, because if you wanted to do an impromptu visit, you could at any time. I think, and I'm confident that the people we have with the barber board now, the people, the inspectors, are able to do what's necessary to ensure that it's sanitary. My thing is, there is nothing more critical than the giving of blood when we talk about sanitation. We're able to let them set up, give blood, and we feed people, and we're able to inspect them. And according to the existing health requirements, these very same requirements will be for this mobile unit. They have to do the very same things.
Representative James.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Most of my questions have been answered, but the licensing process would be the same as the licensing process for a barbershop that's stationary, correct?
The person that will apply for this must be a licensed barber currently.
Okay.
They'd have to be a licensed barber, and they could not train an apprentice. They will be under the same rules and regulations as anybody else.
Thank you.
Okay. Representative Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I apologize to the chair and the committee. I was seeing our two newest colleagues sworn in over there at 8:45, and that ran a little bit behind. I apologize for the delay in getting to the committee meeting. I wanted to ask the author of the bill. We're talking about mobile barbershop, and in the context you're delivering, you're assuming a vehicle, mobile.
That's
I'm in a
correct.
vehicle. But there's nothing really that says that. I mean, mobile here could be licensed so that I could be on South Main Street one day in a building, and then be in North Main Street the next day in a building, or West Fifth Avenue. Would that?
No, sir. No, sir. That's an itinerant barber. I'm talking about a mobile barber shop. Is the shop itself? It's not the barber. It wouldn't go to. They would not be able to move to a fixed building. This would be a mobile.
Yes, sir. And I guess that's my question. I think probably, and perhaps everybody, I'm new to the committee, so perhaps everybody else understands what mobile is, but I think maybe might help a little bit with that, you know, even to the point of where they could operate, because you're not trying to get past, for instance, a mobile barbershop rolling into a residential area, are you?
No, here's what would happen. Local ordinances cover already where people can go. And the local ordinances will define what a local community will expect. Now, in the local ordinance, this bill is, the requirements are just like the food vendors. You have communities where you can't set up a food vendor, and that's because of local ordinance. And the local ordinance would decide where, but because it's mobile, you would not want to restrict them from the areas that are acceptable to local, county, or municipal rules and ordinances.
I would just, if I can ask the attorney, in this code section, Madam Attorney, is barbershop defined? I would assume there's probably a definition for that, or is that not true? I guess I would just like to see, before we move forward, a firm definition of mobile barbershop to go along with that. I don't think that would hurt your proposition, Representative Williams. I just think, because if mobile is, in my mind, in one case, different than it might be in another. I think the definition probably would help. I think it might help your proposition.
Barbershop is currently defined in Code Section 43-7-3 in paragraph 5 as meaning the immediate premises upon or within which the practice of barbering is carried on.
Got a definition?
That's it. Well, if I might, Mr. Chairman, if it's a mobile barbershop, it has the same definition, except it's mobile, and mobile means the same thing in this instance as it means a mobile food vendor. There is no difference. That's just the ability to move from place to place.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would agree with you. I think mobile means movable, and we have a definition of what the shop is. I think this is a good proposition, and, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion when it's the proper time.
Okay. Any other comments from the committee? All right. Does anyone in the audience desire to speak on this bill? Okay. Secretary of State's
Thank
office.
you.
Hello, sir. Thank you. I come on behalf of the Georgia State Barbers Board. At the September 13th, 2010 meeting, the board did vote to oppose this legislation. Mainly the reasons surrounding their opposition deal solely with what Representative Harrell had pointed out in regards to the unannounced random inspections. We do several of them a year, usually 2 a year for each shop. The idea being that any one of our inspectors is able to go to a location, do the inspection unannounced without any preparation by that barber to clean up or take care of any issues that might have, might be outstanding, if there's any health violations, whatever the issue may be, to be able to do that unannounced and have an unbiased look at what that surrounding is. The worry would be obviously just the inspection, and that is that is what it boils down to. We do not have the legal authority to stop a vehicle, so if it's en route during that inspection time, we cannot stop a vehicle. But it all involves the inspections and how it would be done. So that is the reason that the Georgia State Board of Barbers has asked to oppose the legislation.
This bill, though, does not prohibit unannounced inspections. Is that right?
That is correct. It just becomes a question of how.
Okay. Thank you. Any questions from the committee? You got one, Carl. Okay.
In your efforts to inspect, why would you need to stop when you could probably pursue and follow wherever they're en route to?
That would be an option. Obviously, the fear would be not knowing where, when, what is occurring in there. If it is just one of the reasons for their concern. Having someone be cleaning during that opportunity, and not necessarily it being a bad thing, but it's just it's a how issue, not necessarily. I think that if there was some way to allow a random inspection that would be able to occur, the board would feel a lot more comfortable with a bill like this. So the legal authority to stop a moving vehicle, I don't necessarily know that is their strongest argument, but it is one of their arguments.
And others are, if I may follow up, Mr.
The inspectors will not be able to conduct random inspections of mobile barbershops to determine if a shop is in compliance with state laws and board rules, including those with regard to licensure, sanitation, disinfection. Shops cannot provide inspections with a definite schedule. Inspections could not be random. They would have to be scheduled in advance, negating the idea of randomness. And barber boards must have a permanent address. OCGA 43712 Part 3 states does business only at the location specified on the application for licensure. And those are the 5 reasons for the board's opposition.
Representative Jurgensen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a few questions for you. Is the process in which these inspections occur codified, or is that done by rules and regs?
I would not know, sir. I would not expect that the process for inspections is codified, but I do not have that information.
If it's not codified, and I would suspect it's not, most of those processes are done by rules and regulations by the board, is it safe to say that the board could then develop rules and regulations to govern this should this become law?
They could. Again, the question is how, and that is the big floating question of how they're able to identify where a barbershop is at that specific occasion without tipping off, for a better word, that barber that they might be showing up for an inspection. And again, we do not have inspectors in every county in every state. We're in different regions for a very short period of time. So if the shop has moved from one region to another, it becomes difficult to keep up and follow wherever that shop would be.
Representative Williams outlined some possible ways to do that, and I guess that's to the point of my question. Since it's possible to know where they are, could the board pass rules and regulations to positively identify them and take care of the situation?
If the board is able to identify where any location, where any inspector is at any time, to be able to provide a random inspection without the barber knowing that they are being checked on, again, I think the board would feel a lot more comfortable. That I don't think there's much dislike of the process. It's just a matter of how inspection can be done. They do take their role very seriously, and the reason for their being is the public health and safety. And so if they're able to feel comfortable that the public health and safety is able to be checked and verified through the random inspection process, I think they would feel a lot more comfortable about a bill such as this.
I think in my mind, the availability of being able to work a process out is there. It's doable, and I agree. We all want them to take their jobs very seriously. It is a serious job. And we have confidence in the board that they're doing a good job already, and I think they could handle and undertake something like this. So,
Representative Dixon.
Actually, Representative Jurgensen asked my question, which I would agree that it seems like the capacity to make these checks is already there. I'm prepared to second his motion when he's ready to make it.
All right, we've heard the testimony. Are we in a position to recommend? I'll entertain a motion. Okay, motion do pass. Do I hear a second? Motion second. Any further discussion on this issue? All.
Just real briefly, I want to keep the gentleman's proposition moving forward, but I would hope he would work with the Secretary of State. I think if it gets to the House floor, it would be helpful to you to be able to answer some of the questions that Representative Harrell and some brought up.
You'll do that, won't you, Representative Williams? Okay. The question has been called. All those in favor of passage of this bill say aye. Aye. Opposed, like sign. Bill overwhelmingly passes by a do pass recommendation. Okay, the next issue that we got is from Representative Rusty Kidd on House Bill 75.
Good morning.
Good morning.
And greetings from Milledgeville and Georgia's Old Capitol Museum. My name is Amy Wright. I am the executive director of two museums. Georgia's Old Capitol Museum, located on the ground floor of Georgia Military College, and the Brown Stetson Sanford House, that is a house museum in the historic district of Milledgeville. It's the Brown Stetson Sanford House at which we had a problem. The house was originally built in 1825. It was built as a tavern in downtown Milledgeville to accommodate legislators in the capital city on business. It became later a private home, then a well-known Sanford House restaurant. Then, when it was to be destroyed in 1966 to make way for a parking lot, it was taken over by the Old Capitol Historical Society and relocated, and later turned over to Georgia's Old Capitol Museum. That gives you a little background on how it came under our auspices. I want to say that we are a 501c3 nonprofit. We raise 90% of our operating budget without help from federal, state, county assistance. When one of our members suggested the idea that we sponsor an ale tasting to call attention to the origins of the Brown Stetson Sanford House as the only surviving tavern inn in Milledgeville, I thought it sounded like a wonderful idea. And we arranged to have samples of various ales. There were actually 9 ales served in little bathroom cups. We sold tickets for the event. The ale was donated, the food was donated, it was clear profit, and we sold tickets for $10 per person. The evening arrived March of 2010. As the guests were coming in the front door to enjoy the ale tasting and the heavy hors d'oeuvres, someone said, "There's somebody that wants to see you at the back door." When I went to the back door, attired in my antebellum costume, there were 2 gentlemen from ATF waiting for me. At first I thought it was a joke when they told me that they had come to shut things down. I thought a good friend, the local sheriff, had set it all up. And I thanked them for coming and said, okay. And I said, this is a joke, isn't it? And the gentleman said, no, ma'am. See the badge? We are from ATF, and you will have to stop dispensing alcoholic beverages because you don't have a state license for a special event. I said, well, thank you for calling that to my attention, and we'll be sure and take care of that the next time. And he said, no, ma'am, you don't understand. We're here to take your alcohol. And so as the guests were milling around enjoying their hors d'oeuvres and their bathroom cup samples of ale, we had to go around and take up all the ale. I was in the kitchen talking with the agents, trying to get more information about exactly what we had violated. And I was told that the process was that you had to get a one-day special events license from your local city council. And then once that was secured, then you could apply for a one-day special events license from the state. The agents were very informative. They were very polite at all times. We took up all the alcohol. It had to be removed from the premises. And we served apple cider and water the rest of the evening. The next morning, I was the first person at City Hall because we wanted to go through the proper process to get the city license, to get the state license, and to have what we were calling a rebound party. That was when I discovered that our city didn't have a special events license. They had never had one, nor were there any plans to enact one. That's when I called Rusty. And I said, look, we've got a real problem here. We're raising 90% of our own budget to support 2 museums in the old Capitol. And we can't serve adult beverages. I was told by the ATF agents that it was not only a problem in our selling tickets, because that put us into a category of selling alcohol, but even if we gave everyone's money back and it was free, we were still distributing alcohol. So as I explained to Rusty, we can't have any events and serve adult beverages. And as Rusty and I began to talk, we realized that this was going to affect a number of nonprofit organizations. And over the past year, the local Episcopal Church was not able to hold their auction because their big fundraiser, because they could not get their license. The hospital, with their fundraiser, got their license in less than 24 hours before the doors were to open for the event. A local school that was already scheduled to have a fundraising event serving alcoholic beverages put a sign on the door and locked the door, saying it was a private party. Well, that was debatable. Georgia Military College, Alumni Weekend, they had to find out and jump all kinds of hoops to be able to serve beer at the alumni reunion. The stories go on and on. Churches, schools, chambers of commerce, hospitals, all of us are being handicapped by this particular law. Now, our city did proceed with undertaking a special events license. It took 3.5 months. In June, I was called and told that the special events license was available. Well, first I was told that I would have to buy a $700 license because there was no special events license, when I really insisted that we could not afford that. Then the city went ahead and did enact a one-day special events license. And in June, we were able to have our rebound party. The only problem was that I was required to have a background and fingerprinting. That was $55. The application fee was $55. Beer, $25. Wine, $25. That was just for the city. Then I had to take the license from the city and apply it to the state, another $25. How long does the process take? I filed in September for an event in December, and I got the license only in time to make the 10-day required amount of time with the state. So any event has to be planned months in advance, and the process of securing these particular business licenses is very onerous to any nonprofit. I am so pleased that Rusty has called this to your attention. I'd like to call one more thing to your attention. Do you know that if you are planning an event, that you invite your supporters to come and attend, and you plan to serve alcoholic beverages, you've got to have a city license. You've got to have a state license. Or you may have ATF at your back door. Thank you.
Representative Powell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Man, you sure are the prettiest bootlegger I've ever seen.
Thank you, I think.
I think this bill has a lot of merit, even though I've got some concerns about some of the language. I think it needs some perfecting, but got a few questions I want to ask you. You said ATF. To start with, did you mean ATF or the Department of Revenue? ATF is federal.
I'm
Department
sorry.
of Revenue.
It was Department of Revenue, yes.
Were you arrested?
I was warned. I was told that my name would remain in a file in Atlanta, and if there were another recurrence, I would be arrested.
Is this common for the activities at Milledgeville, how these type of things are treated, or do you feel y'all were singled out? Or
We were singled out.
a couple of questions. You said that the special events license was difficult at that time to get in the city of Milledgeville.
There was not one.
It was not. But
For one-day special events, there was a commercial pouring license.
But they do have this process now.
They have it as of June 2010.
Question, were y'all selling alcohol, or were y'all giving this away?
We sold tickets to the event.
So you weren't selling the drinks per se, or the beverages?
I was told that did not matter. That if you sold a ticket, you were selling alcohol. If you gave the ticket away, if it were a free event, you were distributing. So in no way could you get around serving adult beverages. And one other thing, they told me that it is site-specific. Whoever is hosting the event must have the license. So, for instance, the Chamber of Commerce cannot buy the license to cover all business after hours. Every business after hours held in separate locations has to get their own special events pouring license, and it has to be repeated every time that particular venue serves adult beverages.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Representative Flood.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm glad as well that you brought this to the attention of this committee, because I actually had the same problem last year as I hosted a golf tournament, where even though not everyone who was there was going to purchase beer or wine, if you distribute beer or wine at a golf tournament, then you are required to have a special events license from the city and or county, as well as a license from the Department of Revenue, a permit from the Department of Revenue. Luckily, I was made aware of it in advance so that I had the time to get those licenses enacted. But just for the information for the members, if you host a golf tournament, which many of us do, and you have alcoholic beverages at the golf tournament, then you're required to have both licenses, as you've mentioned. Just one question, and then maybe Representative Kidd, you can clarify. This would only apply to nonprofit organizations, so it wouldn't apply. Is a chamber a nonprofit organization typically? Thank you.
Representative Martin.
Mr. Chairman, if we're not going to, are we planning to try to take action on this today? If we're not, given the hour, I'll wait on the question.
Well, there's a lot of questions being raised about it, and we're talking about nonprofits versus profits, and there's rules and regs that govern both. There's some questions I have about it. So, Representative Powell, is going to be in your subcommittee to hash out these differences and clarify it and come back to us with a bill that we can live with. Well, I think, too, some of the questions have been raised, and I've experienced some same situations up in my area that maybe we need to talk to Revenue about streamlining this process so that you don't have to jump through all these hoops to get these things. And I know it's important when you're dealing with alcohol, you're dealing with a dangerous thing to turn loose out on the public without some guidelines on it. Representative Powell.
Mr. Chairman, I want to ask that, not of this, the witness, but do we have anyone from the Department of Revenue here this morning?
Scott, you want to ask him some questions?
If he's willing to.
He's willing. He's always willing.
Scott, how you doing?
All right.
The lady's brought up this issue, and you're familiar with this issue?
I am somewhat familiar with her situation. In her situation, there was a problem with the way the alcohol for her event was derived. It didn't go through the proper chains. I believe it was donated direct from the manufacturer. Didn't go through the wholesaler. Didn't come through there. So that was the initial reason we were there, is that the alcohol did not go through the proper chain.
Had there been a complaint filed?
I can't say for sure, Representative Powell. I'm sure there were. We were there.
I
do know some history of it. I mean, I wasn't involved with that unit at the time, but I do know that the alcoholic beverage did come straight from the manufacturer.
So obviously that'd be a complaint. Somebody had to tell y'all, because I don't think y'all got enough time to scan the newspaper.
No, sir.
And come up with that idea. Are you familiar with the proposed bill in front of us?
Somewhat, sir.
If the subcommittee, if it has a meeting this afternoon, would you be available?
I'm sure someone will be, whether it's me or the director would be available.
A couple of questions while the committee is here, because it might issue some other questions. How prevalent is this problem about the events and nonprofits and these goodwill events?
We do quite a few, and Ms. Wright is correct. You know, we try to get them to apply with us 10 days prior to give us a little time to make sure, you know, we can get everything in order. Of course, you know, we do what we can do. We try to get them out as quick as we can, and we do them on an emergency basis when we get them 5 days from the event or 3 days from the event. the issue we've been seeing mostly is them getting the local authorization. It seemed to be the biggest problem. I know in the city of Atlanta, they don't want to issue the permit until like the day of the event, which puts the pressure on us because we got to have the local before we can issue the state.
Do you have any ideas, since you've been doing this for so long, have you got any particular ideas of what would simplify this process? I mean, I've got concerns about the part about selling and, you know, the definition of the non-profit, because you have a lot of charitable events. I mean, it's almost like doing raffles under the technicality of the law. Every time a high school's sports team does a raffle for something, that could be construed. So if we're talking about selling, do you have some ideas that you might want to share with us that would make this a more streamlined but enforceable process?
We're actually working on some new proposals now. The new commissioner has given us licensing. So alcohol and tobacco will be doing the alcohol licensing now in lieu of the Taxpayer Services Division. Our director is working to where we will be able to issue special event permits. And in other words, you won't have to come to Atlanta. We'll be able to do them in the regional offices now. We hope to streamline even the process for beer and wine license, that you'll be able to come into one of our regional offices. If we can't issue you the license that day, we can get you a temporary permit. We're working diligently to improve our customer service. The director says that under the old process, it looks like the customer was on the back end. As far as getting service, we're trying to move them to the front end now, and the commissioner wants that, and that's what we're going to do. So we hope to improve not only licensing but special events to make it a more streamlined process. But we do have concerns of events happening without some kind of license issued by us. I mean, we need to know, you know, we have concerns over how the alcohol at these events will be obtained.
Basically recognition that these are legitimate groups and not folks that are out there
especially the nonprofits. You know, under the nonprofit statutes now, they're the holder of a special event permit. The wholesaler can donate product. I mean, I'm sure the wholesalers are going to want something from us before they start donating product, or they put their license in jeopardy. So we have concerns over it. I mean, we want to know where alcohol is being served, and I think, like the chairman said, alcohol is a dangerous issue, and somebody needs to be held accountable for the event and the things that happen at the event.
Okay, it's time to go across the hall, across the street, and there's some other questions, but if Representative Powell is going to hold this meeting this afternoon, I'd love the revenue to get together and let's get this thing moving.
Yes, sir.
And get some of these questions answered. So anybody on the committee that has questions, get with Representative Powell or whoever and be at that meeting, and we can get this solved. No further business to come before the committee. We stand adjourned. Yes.